Firstly, I got a couple of shout outs here. I want to especially thank Sierra for the artistic rendition of yours truly. I was tired of drawing myself and you saw it with flying colors. It looks great. Secondly, a special thanks to Sam for the spiffy new Versus logo. Check out his info in the description. And by extension, I want to give a special shout out to Brandon, the person who designed my channel banner, my updated profile picture, and my livestream assets. Thank you, man. And last but certainly not least, a huge shout out to T-Lopes for composing my new intro song. Dude, you did a fucking fantastic job. I'm ecstatic how well it turned out, and I was happy to commission you for the piece. Please check out his website if you haven't already. And T, looking forward to the rest of the Sonic Mania soundtrack, man. But back to the subject at hand. For the next 4 videos, I'm heading back to the Zelda franchise. And yeah, 4 videos barely qualifies as a marathon, but Zelda games are no one-day endeavor, especially as of late, so I plan on taking my time with these. I've got 2 here that I've beaten but haven't replayed in quite some time, and 2 I've barely touched. And it's about time for me personally to get to those and see what I think about them. Time will tell, but let's start here in the meantime. The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker, a 2003 title that holy fuck everyone was waiting for. Ocarina of Time left such a huge mark on the industry that whatever its successor would be, had its work cut out for it. When Majora's Mask came out in 2000, it was considered too much of a departure from the standard formula to be considered a true follow-up to the 1997 classic. And though I absolutely adore the game nowadays, this wasn't what people had in mind back then. So afterwards, when the GameCube was on its way, Zelda fans had a glimmer of a possible next-gen Zelda. I didn't see this shit growing up, for the record. I was only exposed to this proof of concept after I already played Twilight Princess and all that. And Ganondorf sure got a fat fucking face here. Oh, I'm sorry. This got folks shitting their pants with anticipation, and then next year, the actual next-gen Zelda was shown off, and well, this ain't no Ocarina of Time. Reaction was so heavily mixed to Wind Waker's cartoonish visuals that Nintendo made damn sure to only show the game off when they needed to until it was released. They felt, at the time, they achieved all they could with the more down-to-earth style of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and they wanted to try something new. But personally, I didn't care. Maybe it was because I didn't grow up with these two, but I didn't see the big deal. And sure enough, Wind Waker marked my return to the Zelda franchise after a bit of absence. I too, at the time, wanted something a little more traditional in my 3D Zelda adventures after Majora's Mask alienated me again at the time, and I heard Wind Waker was what I was looking for. I jumped into it in 2004, about a year after it came out. It was my summer game because I was tired of Final Fantasy X at the moment. And before heading back into it for this video, I remember a few things about that first experience. Water. Lots of water. Too much fucking water. Oh my god, what did I do? Am I there yet? And I will rip your dick off, Tingle. And yet, I recall enjoying Wind Waker enough to still give it the thumbs up, but I haven't played the game completely since then. It's 2017 and we now have this fancy HD remaster for the Nintendo Wii U. It's got a higher resolution, resulting in cleaner visuals in addition to some added flair. Though it gets a little crazy with the bloom effects a few times, washing the whole picture out. The HD remaster also includes several changes to make the adventure better paced and streamlined, and it's because of those changes that I'm making this the version I'm focusing on because, let's face it, despite the console's failed status, the Wii U version is more relevant, sailing was tremendously arduous in the GameCube game, and fuck me that Triforce hunt. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's take a look at Wind Waker's plot.
So in a rare display of continuity, Wind Waker follows the events of Ocarina of Time. Link defeated Ganon and was sent back in time to live out the rest of his childhood. We all know how that turned out. Ganon, on the other hand, was sealed away in the sacred realm for all eternity, or so it was believed. Eventually, he managed to break out, and since Link was no longer around since he was sent back in time, Hyrule was free for the picking. Realizing the hero of time was not around to solve the issue, the townspeople, in a last-ditch effort, prayed to their gods to do away with the vengeful Ganon, and in response, the gods flooded the whole fucking world. There's no kill like overkill, they say, and god damn was that overkill. So generations pass and the hero of time's accomplishments are told through legends. When young men are of the right age, they are trained in the way of the sword in hopes of becoming the next hero of time. And next up in line is this kid. Prince Valium here is celebrating his birthday when he's given the iconic green tunic and sword, and just in time too, because not long after, a huge demonic bird is seen carrying a young girl high in the sky, which it clumsily drops after being bombarded by pirate attacks. The girl in question is a young pirate named Tetra, looking to get to the bottom of the seemingly random bird attack, and shortly after Link deals with some goons and rescues the girl, the bird makes a return trip and kidnaps Link's young sister Aryll. Tetra reluctantly agrees to help Link rescue his sister, and the two head for the Forsaken Fortress, where the bird was last seen. Link manages to sneak his way past the patrols, but it's of little use as the bird ambushes Link anyway, and through the orders of this mysterious and elusive Ganondorf, Link is tossed aside like a rag doll and left for dead. Lucky for him, this is just the beginning of the adventure, and Link is rescued by this talking boat. If this were any other game, I'd sound like I was losing my fucking mind. The boat dubs himself the King of the Red Lions and wishes to help Link save his sister and stop the returning Ganondorf. To do so, Link must prove his worth as a hero by collecting the pearls of the goddess and unlocking the power of the Master Sword, the blade that fucking matters. So together throughout this vast sea, Link meets with many different inhabitants of this flooded Hyrule, including the skeevy locals of Windfall Island, the Rito tribe of Dragon Roost, who are in fact descendants of Zoras, because you know when the world floods it's best not to be the race that has no problem living in the fucking ocean. And then there's the Koroks of Forest Haven, descendants of the Kokiri from Ocarina of Time. I don't know how they went from elves to living pieces of wood, but whatever. Altogether, it's a rather standard adventure for the young hero. He gets the pearls, he gets the sword. The sword turns out to be out of battery, so he gets a new pair and he's good to go. He rescues his sister along the way, drinks some red potion in front of his sick grandma, finds out Tetra is actually Princess Zelda thanks to the talking boat, who itself turns out to be the lost king of Hyrule. And then, in a matter of time, Link faces off against Ganondorf and sticks the sword into his fucking head, killing him off for good. At least in this timeline anyway. Wind Waker doesn't do much differently as far as Zelda stories go. Now, whether that was a response to Majora's Mask's initially mixed reaction, I'm not sure, but it hits all the notes a Zelda fan would expect. It's got Link, it's got Zelda, eventually, and it's got Ganondorf. The trifecta is all here, and I think it's fine in the end, though I wish they went a little further with some introduced concepts. The biggest one is Zelda's alter ego Tetra, the wise-ass captain of the pirates. Unlike, say, Sheik from Ocarina of Time, Tetra isn't aware that she's the fabled princess initially. Until then, she's cool, collected, and gets shit done. But when she's revealed to be the princess and after transforming into the role, she becomes a sitting duck, and I never liked that. Now, later during the fight with Ganondorf, she goes above and beyond and actually helps Link out, which is awesome, but I would have loved if Zelda accompanied Link through the whole adventure. She can obviously take care of herself as Tetra. I doubt suddenly donning a dress would change that. Secondly, the whole fucking world flooded after Ocarina of Time. I know Zelda isn't particularly rich in lore at this point, I get that, but I guess I would have liked a little more response to that. What happened to Zelda? When we start off, it's ages since that shit happened, so it makes sense no one around really makes anything of it. It's just as a fan of Ocarina of Time, I would have liked to see more of the build-up to the flood, and the story of those affected by it and all that. Was that covered in Hyrule Historia? I never did read that thing. It's not a huge deal in the end, it's still a fun enough story, and I love how Link this time is more of an accidental hero instead of the standard chosen hero. Just look at his face when he receives the green tunic. He wants nothing to do with the tradition, but he sticks with it anyway because he's a lovable goofball that means well, and wants to protect those he loves. This is one of my favorite incarnations of Link. He's untrained, a total dork, and unlike previously, actually fucking emotes. You can tell when he's in over his head, or angry, or sad, and that really brings the character out. I get that Link is ultimately supposed to represent the player, but it helps when the character responds to the shit happening around them. That's the reason why this barrel sequence is funny, or whenever you use that ultra spin attack. I love that! For as standard as the plot is, this Link makes it feel a little something more, because more than ever you want to see this kid succeed, if only because he's just so fucking adorable. There's plenty of people Link meets in the game across all the islands you'll sail to. They don't all strike gold in personality, though some are interesting given how certain events transpire. My favorite is this game host. I look at his face, his posture, and say, shit man, I can relate. But he does his job and puts on a show for the sake of being a good host. Fuck me, that was deeper than I meant it to be, I'm sorry about that. But as for the game, it's a whole different world out there. No longer are the lands filled with lush green grass and floating pineapples. Instead, we have oceans as far as the eye can see, and together with the King of Red Lions, it's Link's task to sail through these waters in search of new islands containing towns to visit, dungeons to clear, and treasure to loot. It is without a doubt the trait that defines Wind Waker, the sailing, the means of how you travel this world, and before I used to absolutely hate this. I mean, I still dislike it, but it's not as bad as it used to be. Traveling requires using your sail to ride along the wind's path, but sometimes the wind may not blow in the direction you want, so you must manually change it. And that's where the titular Wind Waker comes into play, a magical instrument that allows one to change the direction of the wind. It doesn't have the same impact as the ocarina if you ask me, and it's nowhere near as big of a deal. It's just given to you with no build-up, and then, from that point on, it's just something you use to speed up time, progress through dungeons, and conduct seances with. Playing the instrument is also not as quick as the ocarina. The inputs are simpler, but you're playing on actual time signatures which can't be sped up for every song. In later scenarios when you're required to play a specific song repeatedly, it starts to grate on you. And at the very least, I wish I could speak conduct as if I were Koji Kondo on a shitload of ginseng. This is one of the reasons why sailing sucked so much in the original Wind Waker. You had to use the thing constantly to change the wind in a favorable direction. You stop in your tracks, whip out the baton, play the notes, change the wind, watch the wind change, and get moving again. The other reason was because simply sailing from one place to another was such a goddamn slog. And don't get the wrong idea, there are loads of islands, big and small, to discover when traveling, and they all contain something Link can use, whether it be a payout of rupees, pieces of heart to eventually extend your health, or one of the many fairy fountains that can grant Link upgrades to his arsenal. The ocean itself even has a few things to salvage, though it's mostly rupees. I think this game has one of the highest potential rupee caps in the whole series, a total of 5,000 rupees after getting the biggest wallet. But if you were playing the original version of the game, there was a very good reason for that. My point is, you're always bound to see something across the horizon that you can reach in due time. I repeat, in due time, because between those areas of interest is a fuckload of water. There's too much water in this game, and it absolutely destroys the first third of this game's pace. Now I say first third because once you get the bow and arrows, you can get the Ballad of Gales by poking this guy in the ass a couple of times. This lets you warp to certain points on the map, reducing backtracking substantially, which is great, but ugh, the journey before that feels like something else, and maybe it's just the developers really trying to exemplify the sheer scope of exploring the Great Sea, to never know what to expect beyond the endless horizon. And sure enough, there's something about the sound of wind and clashing waters that give Wind Waker a greater ambience than previous games, and when the sun goes down, or when the weather suddenly gets rough, I'm legitimately tense and reminded of unpleasant memories. I tried sailing in the ocean once as a kid, and my ass fucking tanked. I got seasick like nothing else. I hate the ocean, which isn't Wind Waker's fault to be fair, but even if I didn't already have a clear bias against it, sailing in the endless blue is just not as visually appealing as, say, riding on horseback against the lush green landscape of Hyrule or Termina. And keep in mind, I thought Hyrule in Ocarina of Time was fucking dull, but visually, there was more there. I'm just not a man of the sea. I'll gladly stop to observe uncharted territory if I happen to come across it along the way, but I'm not very interested in exploring in Wind Waker at all. And chalk another reason why I prefer the HD remaster, because that version gives you the swift sail. You gotta buy it from the auction house first, and that's random. I don't want the treasure truck dick to give me the fucking sail. But once you get it, it's great. You move twice as fast, and every time you whip it out, the wind automatically changes to the direction you're facing, meaning you don't have to repeatedly use the Wind Waker. It softens the blow big time. It's less time spent in the ocean, and more time spent on some of the more traditional aspects of Zelda, like dungeons. At least for a little bit anyway. Wind Waker was under a strict schedule during development, which led to content apparently getting omitted, and you can sort of feel it at times. Link goes through 2 dungeons to get 2 pearls of the goddesses respectively, but the third one is just oddly given to him with no climax. Wind Waker is filled with a lot of miniature instances, not necessarily full dungeons, and 2 of those actual dungeons are pretty similar in execution, in which you use the Wind Waker to mind control your partner to solve puzzles. Actually, now that I think about it, that's also a big theme in the Tower of the Gods, so make that 3 times you're solving dungeons in a similar fashion. But let no other example exemplify the lack of content than that fucking Triforce hunt. To prove his courage as a true hero of the winds, and I guess as a callback to the original Zelda on the NES, Link is required to search for the Triforce of Courage, which has been broken up into 8 pieces and scattered across the ocean. In the original version, this was the absolute worst. You could only discover Triforce pieces by using Triforce charts, which you had to find firstly, but then you had to get them deciphered because you couldn't interpret the language. That's where Tingle comes in. The 30-something spandex wearing creeper from Majora's Mask has returned, not just rocking a hard-on for fairies, ugh, but the motherfucker loves rupees. Tingle offered to decipher Triforce charts for a meager 398 rupees per chart. There was 8 Triforce charts total, meaning you had to spend a grand total of 3,184 rupees to proceed through the game, an in-game paywall that brought the endgame to a screeching halt, and raison numero dos on why you should get the HD remaster. After completing the necessary trials, your rewards were just straight up Triforce pieces, meaning you didn't have to pay this asshole a single goddamn cent for 5 of the 8 possible pieces, and by this time of the game, you should easily have over 1,200 rupees to get the remaining 3 Triforce pieces from the charts, because it ain't like you'll be spending money on potions or other things. This is hands down one of the easiest Zelda games I ever played. From the expanded combat options like the parry system, which lets you easily counter just about anything, the sheer utility and item upgrades that give you more options on top of the extended combat, the outright broken techniques you can unlock, and finally Grandma's Soup. Wow, full health and magic restoration and an attack boost until I take damage? Fuck. I don't know what the game over screen in Wind Waker looks like. I've never died in this game, period. And I don't think the dungeons are at all taxing either. They can go on a little long. I think it hurts that, again, you're doing the same mind control gimmick for 3 of the temples, making them feel a little samey, and not even one of these boss fights are tough in the slightest, with the exception to the final one. That one's actually really cool. Now, I still have a lot of fun using the new grapple hook for swinging around. I really get a kick out of the new Deku Leaf, which lets you glide long distances with enough magic power, and I'm always happy to see returning classics like the boomerang, the bow and arrow, and that sexy hookshot. You ever use it on a Dark Knight? You just aim at their head, zip towards them, and yeah! Oh! I could do that all day. In the Wii U version, you can take selfies with the Picto Box. I don't consider that a selling point, but it's funny to do with friends, family, frozen demons, and dark wizards. I believe Wind Waker to be a good jumping point if you haven't played a 3D Zelda game yet, and for the love of God, make sure it's the HD remaster. I can't stress that enough. Wind Waker plods in the beginning and end of the adventure, and without those refinements, it'll wear you down. But on the plus side, it certainly won't kick you in the ass if you're not looking for something overly difficult. Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask are still better games in my opinion, if only because it feels like there's more to them both visually and content-wise. Wind Waker isn't bad in the slightest. I wholeheartedly love the way it looks, and I certainly love the amount of utility this incarnation of Link has, but the world around him doesn't adjust accordingly, which again makes it one of the easier Zelda games, but also one of the shallower. There's much to discover in the open blue, and that's great, especially if you get a kick out of sailing, but it's purely for completionist purposes, and nothing you need to absolutely do to ensure survival. I'm surprised I got as many hearts as I did. I could have had half of these, and I would have been just fine.
So my revisit was pleasant overall, but not entirely fulfilling. Or perhaps the next game will satisfy the rest of that craving. And we're not putting the Wii U away just yet. For next time, we're looking at the HD remaster of The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. And I really want to see what I think about this one going back to it. God, I remember the build-up for this one big time, but that's for next time. Thank you for watching. Have yourselves a fantastic night, and take care.